Great, thanks, Helen. All right, well, look, it's 12 o'clock on the dot. We are having people joining us, so I might just give it another 30 seconds or so. And just a reminder to please make sure you're all on mute. She's not a background. All right, well, we might kick off. Welcome, everybody, to today's Australasian Women in Emergencies Day Forum. It's great to have you here. It's great to have our special guests here. I would like to start today by welcoming everybody who's attending and welcoming our guests as well. I would also like to recognise the traditional owners and custodians of the lands upon which we meet and pay our respects to elders past and present. I'm joining you today from Toongaroong country, where it's beautiful, although a little bit cold. We recognise that sovereignty was never ceded and that this land always was, always will be Aboriginal land. We also recognise the unique role of Maori, and we embrace the Treaty of Waitangi, New Zealand's foundation document, confirming Maori as the first people of New Zealand. It recognises that they have absolute authority or sovereignty over their lands, resources and treasured possessions, while embracing the three guiding principles of the Te Tiriti: partnership, participation and protection. And for those of you that are new to OAR, we are the Australasian Women in Emergencies Network. We promote, support and recognise women in emergency management and disaster resilience. And we have almost 2,000 members across Australia, New Zealand and the Pacific. We're recording the webinar today so that you can view it later or share it with your colleagues. And so please make sure you keep yourself on mute so that we don't get your background noise. So onto our agenda, we're going to be hearing from 4 women from very different parts of the emergency management and disaster resilience sector. And each of these women plays a different role in emergencies and disasters. We'll be hearing a little bit about their career paths, some of the women who've inspired them, and some of the highlights and challenges that they've faced along the way. We'll also be opening up a Q&A session at the end of their presentations. Please put any questions you've got in the chat and we'll make sure we monitor those and try to get to them as soon as we can. I'm very excited to introduce you to our first speaker, Dr. Kendra Clegg. Kendra is the Regional Recovery Manager in the Grampians region from Emergency Recovery Victoria. Welcome, Kendra. It's great to have you here today.
Good afternoon. Thanks so much for having me. I'm joining you from the lands of the Wodjabolic peoples in Western Victoria and pay my respect to elders past and present and acknowledge any Aboriginal or First Nation, Aboriginal Torres Strait Islanders here with us today, and also want to celebrate that it's Lanuk season here in the Grampians region, which is my favourite. It's the bird nesting season as we progress through spring. So my journey into emergencies wasn't something I ever planned. It all began with the Indian Ocean tsunami in 2004. And at that time, I was working in Jakarta in the political sector. And within days, I found myself seconded to the United Nations, helping make sense of the chaos left by this unimaginable disaster. Over 170,000 people died in Indonesia alone. And globally, the toll was 230,000 people. It was unfathomable. And with little sleep and a sense of urgency, I realized something important. This is where I wanted to be. That experience and my decision to jump headfirst into this new world of emergency management led to a life of extensive travel. I found myself in cities and remote villages across Asia, leading teams in multiple major emergencies: earthquakes, volcanoes, typhoons, and even human conflict. Sometimes I was flying solo, arriving just as the disaster struck. And the most fulfilling part was watching local and national governments step up and lead with communities at the heart of their response. Throughout these career journeys, I was fortunate to have incredible mentors, many of whom were women. They lifted me up, they gave me a space to grow and helped remove barriers along the way. Their encouragement made all the difference. The kind of support I believe is easy to provide and brings significant impact to lives, both in our workplaces and our communities. And when I'm asked what changed for women in emergencies over my 20-year career, I have to pause, as there's been a lot of momentous shifts. But these are for me, these shifts are for me and about me rather than the sector itself. And reflecting on my time with the UN, I had great experiences. Gender and diversity were recognised and valued, and I never felt that being a woman working in emergencies was a barrier. But moving to Australia in 2012 was a shock. Suddenly, I was faced with hurdles I'd never experienced before. Every day, I had to prove my worth as a woman in this field. It was confronting, to say the least, and I realised I had developed a mantra to keep myself going. I demonstrate my value and capability every day. Now, when I think about it, this mantra, I realise it reflects the uniform workplace culture here. The focus seems to be on prestige of leadership rather than actual capability. And then came pregnancy, which is a whole other story about being seen as a mum in an emergency that I'll leave for another time. But if I can take a moment to put a spotlight on volunteering, I'm proud to share that as a volunteer firefighter in Victoria, I haven't personally felt that gender was a consideration and have felt well supported and encouraged every step of the way. And as part of a very small rural fire brigade, the only real barrier I face is time. But back to the workplace, and 10 years later in Victoria, I gratefully now work in disaster recovery, building relationships, partnerships, and working with communities before and after disasters. And I love my job. It's a real privilege to work alongside the sector colleagues and communities here. While challenges for women in emergencies still exist, the dial is shifting. Networks like AWE create environments where support and encouragement thrive. I see so many capable women leading throughout the sector, and we all have a role to play in changing the culture from within. And I'm certain it's as simple as reflecting positively on women around us and reaching out a hand to lift and encourage someone along their journey. And looking around, I'm hopeful. The collaboration is stronger and the future looks brighter. And like you, I love being a woman in emergencies. Thanks for listening, and thanks for your support and encouragement.
Oh wow, thank you, Kendra. That was absolutely fantastic. And what a way to start with a tsunami. No
Yeah.
little local bushfires or something modest to kind of cut your teeth on, but really throwing yourself in the deep end. What an amazing career you've had, and I know that we could certainly listen to you talk all day. And some of the things you said, I think, really resonated for me, and certainly for the women in this network. Words like encouragement and lifting people up, and ensuring that you're validating yourself and honouring yourself and the contribution that you're making. And I really love that, reflecting positively on the women around you that you're working with. So let's all call each other out and give each other pats on the back and great rounds of applause. Thank you so much, Kendra. I'd now like to pass on to Shireen Munia. Shireen is the Coordinator, Incident Management Systems at CFA in Victoria. And last week, Shireen also was winner of an AWE Recognition Award. So congratulations, Shireen, and it's great to see you back on the screen again today. Over to you.
Thank you very much. Well, I have been working for the Country Fire Authority for over 26 years, so that kind of dates me. I started off my career in, I guess, emergency management or in the Defence Force. So I started off in the Army Reserve and I went into the Corps of Transport. So I was a truckie for all of those that are familiar with the Defence and some of the corps. Then I went from the Corps of Transport into like a movements operator role, which is like a logistics role. And from in that position there, I was actually similar to Kendra. I was also involved with the Boxing Day tsunami and a couple of other humanitarian aid missions and operational deployments in the Middle East. So my role as a movements operator really translated across well to my role in the CFA, and I've gone into a role called logistics for those that are familiar with AIMS, and I've progressed through logistics in the CFA, and I'm now what is called a level 3 accredited logistics officer, and I've also gained my EMPS accreditation with AFAC as well. So it's fair to say that I love all things Team Blue and logistics, and that passion for working in incident management and helping out communities, I liken it to event management or party planning or being a bridesmaid. So fun fact about me is I've been a bridesmaid 9 times because I'm very organised, and I think that organisation and love for people and pulling together a great event has really translated across well into the logistics stream. When I first started off in emergency management in the CFA, it was a very different time in the organisation. So 26 years ago, you've got to think of things that were culturally quite different, and being a young woman sort of navigating emergency management, I wasn't always prioritised to do the training or do any of the leadership development. So I had always felt like I was floundering a little bit myself and having to find my own way, but with a passion for helping. I found my own niche, and I found my tribe along the way. And I'm very pleased to say that I'm helping other people navigate the system as well. And that has also directly correlated to me being a trainer and facilitator in incident management. So I like to make it a really safe place to come in and learn, and that I feel that everybody has something to offer, definitely in the emergency management space, whether you're in relief, recovery, or direct line supporting in operations in the response phase, and that everyone brings skills and experiences and attributes that work really well. And I think just making it a very safe place for people to come and help out and use their skills is something that I'm very passionate about. I am in the most amazing position on earth that, for some weird reason, that all the stars have aligned for me in my career, and I have ended up in this lovely niche position called incident management systems, where I help people out with their operational systems that they need to use all of the systems when they're working in emergencies. And then I also get to help people navigate their careers and pathways to become incident leaders themselves. So very, very lucky that all of my skills across the CFA and years of experience in working in volunteerism and different roles have assisted me to get to where I am today. Some of the other things that I do in the community that I think also help me being a great community person, that sounded a bit conceited, but contributing to the community and the emergency management sector is I've also become a Justice of the Peace. I'm also involved in Rotary and our local Brown Hill Progress Association. So I actually really love working with communities and helping people. So I'd like to pass on to the next person, because I know we've got a very full agenda today, and it's very lovely seeing everybody on the screen today. And thank you very much for inviting me along. Thank you.
Oh, wonderful, Shireen. And I'm so glad you're in a position that you are absolutely loving. And it was great to hear that both you and Kendra are really, really loving their jobs. And I think it's something that's very common amongst people in the sector, a real sense of purpose and passion. But I'm going to pull you up on something you said. The stars are aligned to see you where you are now in the position that you're loving. I suspect it's more to do with your hard work, your determination, your skills, and what you've actually brought that has led you to be in the place that you are. So congratulations for all of that. And I really love the way you highlighted the other hats that you wear and the other roles that you play, because we all do. We all wear different hats and do different things, whether it's within our families, our friends, our broader community, professionally or personally. And it's great to hear more about you as a complete person, Shireen. So thank you so much.
Thank you.
So our next speaker is Erin Pelly. Erin is the National Manager for Recovery at Australian Red Cross. She's a colleague of mine at Red Cross. We both work together, and I'm thrilled to be able to introduce her today. Over to you, Erin.
Thanks, Bridget. It's awesome to be here. I'd just like to acknowledge that I'm joining from Wurundjeri country in Naarm, and shout out to any Aboriginal and Torres Strait Islander people on the call. It's interesting hearing our other speakers talk today. I won't tell you where I was at during the tsunami, but I haven't been around the sector as long with that level of experience. But it's interesting hearing you both talk about your experiences in emergency management, because I think that's a real shout out to the women who have come before. I'm relatively new in disaster recovery, but I have definitely benefited from the hard work of Australian women that have come before, and have paved the way to make it easier for me and people in sort of my age group, I guess. And I just like to talk about, I don't feel like I've had some of the barriers. I haven't felt like I've had to prove my worth as much, because there's been incredible powerhouse women around me pumping me up, opening doors, pulling out a seat at the table, creating other, like Australian Women in Emergencies Network, creating another table to have a voice, and just to get used to having a voice and being a loud one. And that's really cool. And I look at Australian Red Cross and I go, well, there's definitely, as an organisation, room to grow and improve. But I also have had incredible mentors with Andrew Coghlan, Kate Brady, who have supported me along the way. The Australian Red Cross has a dedicated women's leadership program that only is available for women and women identifying people, which gave me a lot of confidence to give things a go, and try things and see if they work or not. My team, a couple of them applied for the same leadership program that I completed a couple of years ago, and they all said to me, I don't know if I'm ready, I'm not really sure. And I'm like, because I'd been through it, I got to be able to say what I got out of it. And then I just remind people to please make sure you're on mute. Thank you. And then I was trying to think of some women who have really inspired me, particularly in the last 4 years. I actually left the emergency services sector because I didn't feel like there was career progression or opportunity. And I went and did some other stuff in health for a while before the Black Summer bushfires, and then I came back into working in a disaster recovery role at Red Cross. And I had people actively looking out for my career and building my skill sets and giving me opportunities to trial stuff, and encouraging me when I'm crying, being like, I don't know what I'm doing. And then being like, no one knows what they're doing. They're just better at pretending. So, you can do this. And I think that's just having sort of that peer support. I want to shout out Linda McCabe, Jocelyn Galvez, Carmel Khalili, Julie Perkins, Shona Witten, Antonia Mackey, Kate Brady as some incredible women I've worked with who have supported me and guided me over the last few years, as well as some of the men that said, I like that you're a straight talker and you say how it is. You might need to work on your diplomacy skills. So, good skills and feedback to learn from. And then I guess something I was thinking about is last week I was at the National Indigenous Disaster Resilience Summit, and there was a whole bunch of Aboriginal women who got on the mic and talked about how they're providing support to their communities, and they've been providing support to their communities for a long time, and are continuing to do that in the disaster recovery context. And A couple of years ago, Auntie Julie Perkins asked me to participate on a panel on her behalf, and it was honestly the biggest honour I'd ever had. And I went, I can't talk on behalf of Aboriginal women. And she goes, well, I've learned you well, and if an auntie asks you, you do it. And I thought it was the biggest nerve-wracking experience of my life. But, you know, if Auntie asks, you do it. And I just think, you know, in having the opportunities on panels like this to make sure that we're talking about all the different voices that may not necessarily always have the same opportunities, and just remind people to be thinking about who's not at the table, and what work we can continue to make into the future. I don't know if I've forgotten another question, but thank you for having me. And yeah, things work when you promote, support, and recognise women and the people around you. And the answers are there, and we just need to keep doing it. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Erin. Thank you so much. And look, it is so great to get the perspective of somebody who is, you know, certainly a little bit younger than me, to hear your stories, and particularly, you know, for you to be able to note that, you know, you hadn't had to face the same challenges that many of us have over the years, and that, you know, society and culture and organisational culture have moved on. And I guess, you know, when you're working in the not-for-profit sector, it is possibly a little bit more friendly toward women than some of the more traditional male-dominated sectors, but there are, of course, still challenges and barriers to be faced. I really loved your phrase, Erin, pulling out a seat at the table. Bring someone with you to that important meeting, pull out a seat and have them sit there. You know, that is such a powerful thing that you can do. You know, make sure you hand the microphone to somebody that hasn't said much, or is a younger person that's not sure if they kind of have the permission to speak up, and encourage them, because all of their voices and all of our voices are just so important. Thank you so much, Erin. And our final speaker for today is Sharon Henry. And Sharon is the Disaster Response Officer at the Brisbane City Council. Welcome, Sharon.
Hi, everybody. I'd just like to say welcome, everybody, for coming. I think these are amazing events that you guys put on. So thank you for asking me. I always find it strange if people ask me to speak, and ring the bell if I say too much, okay? So because I'll just keep going on. I've been 20 years in Brisbane City Council and in this disaster response officer since 2011. I've got a varied background. I think it just created everything that I do now. It brought it to, it came together as one. I've worked in radio before. I've worked in agency, contractors. I've got half an accounting degree, so I'm detail driven, and I ended up, we had a restructuring council. So I always look at the silver lining for things, because we had a restructure and I was lost, and a woman who believed in me, I became a project officer. They gave me a project in 2010 to set up the operational arm of council to be prepared for a disaster. And of course, we were ready to rock and roll, purely because, similar to other girls, I was chief bridesmaid about a dozen times, so I can organise a bridal party and look after the bridesmaids. But we opened the doors in 2011 to, of course, one of our biggest flooding events. And then 2011, they created the role, and I was lucky enough to win that role. So I've been in the role since then. I don't know. I look after the local disaster coordination centre operations guys. I look after our incident management teams. I look after evacuation centre, bump in, bump out. I do spontaneous volunteers, logistics. It's my favourite thing in the world, logistics. There's about 2,000 staff in council. I also look after all our Queensland Reconstruction Authority claims. So I either coordinate or I produce those. Many years ago, I once went to a women's forum at St. Lucia Golf Club, and they asked the question, ask yourself if you're happy in what you're doing. And I sat there and I just couldn't believe where I had landed in my life to this point in time. If you get the opportunity, I volunteered out at Roma Floods. I do volunteering, my BAU, business as usual, outside work. If you get an opportunity to shadow anybody or put your hand up, just have a go. It's all about having a go, and there's no wrong answer, because you're with a group of people that really want to help and embrace everybody and lift people up. I've had some wonderful people in my life, Vicky Anderson, Michael Julian, who've had that belief. And I think just from our nature, usually we're honest, we're transparent, we're action driven, results. We want results. So I really do think that women bring a lot to the party, and it definitely has changed over the time that I started. I've been down to Mount Macedon, and it was much more a boys' club. I mean, I'm not sure if people are aware of Brisbane City Council. It's led by a man who really lifts women up. The whole team is women. I sit in the operational arm, and we all work really closely together. So that's a huge step, I think, in coming through the years. What else can I tell you? I don't generally talk about myself, so I'm a little bit.
You're doing a great job, Sharon. And it's one of the things that can be really common amongst women, is to not feel comfortable talking about ourselves. That's what we like to do, is put you on the spot and make you feel a bit uncomfortable.
Yeah, if you just get the opportunity, ladies, just take it. Shadow somebody, put your hand up. That's helped me a lot. I've been able to act in higher roles. I love the operational side of guys. I love the organising and helping the guys who are the ones who clear the streets of the debris, and the ones who bring back the city. And their passion helps my passion. It's just an amazing feeling to stand in front of them, and they give you honest feedback, and I really like that. So is that enough?
That is absolutely perfect, Sharon. Thank you so much. And what a fascinating career you've had. And I really love that story about how, it was a woman who believed in you, that saw your potential and gave you that break and gave you that opportunity, with lots of encouragement that has, since led you to be where you are now. Obviously, very experienced. I'm also sensing a bit of a theme around bridesmaids. And I'd never sort of put the two together, the organisational skills of bridesmaids and a career in emergency management. Maybe there's a bit of a research piece we could do on that. And Shireen and Sharon, you might have some great bridesmaid stories you can share with one another. Thank you so much. We're going to move into a bit of a Q&A session. I have got some questions here, and I can see there's been a couple of questions in the chat. I'm going to start with a question, which I'll ask each of you. So I'll start with you, Kendra. What is the one top piece of advice, or the one thing that you would say to a young woman starting out in the sector?
Definitely dive in and take every opportunity that presents it, especially if there's no barriers outside the workplace. And the other one is to be inquisitive and ask questions, because they're very powerful. And it's a great way to learn, navigate, but also demonstrate your leadership. Thanks.
That's a fantastic answer, Kendra. And I think asking questions is really powerful, and it's often something that people are really reluctant to do because they don't want to view themselves as knowing less. Sometimes I find in meetings, if I ask a question, everybody then scribbles down the answer, which indicates to me that they're all needing to know the answer, and they're all wanted to ask the question, but for whatever reason didn't. So I think that's a really terrific piece of advice. Thank you. Shireen, what's a piece of advice you'd give to a young person?
I'm lucky. I get to go after Kendra, so I can just echo all the great stuff she's saying. Definitely a curious mindset, like ask the questions, ask why, just ask the questions, and definitely network. Like introduce yourself to people, be curious, find out where they come from, everything. And I've got to say, from working in logistics and networking, it's amazing what problems you can solve if you've got the phone number or you've spoken to somebody who might just have the forklift that you need in the middle of the night. So definitely networking, building those strong networks, and never hesitating to ask the questions. There is no dumb question.
Absolutely. Thank you, Shireen. Lovely answer. I love that curiosity mindset. And I think it's something that we're really lucky with in the sector, because, you know, the sector is so big and the problems we're facing are so incredibly complex. There's always something new to learn. You know, I've been around for 15 years and I still feel like a rank amateur. So, you know, always being curious about, you know, other people's perspectives, other people's experiences and so on. Erin, what about you? What would you advise a young woman coming up?
I think find other people with similar experiences as you, or who've done it, been there, done that before. I, as I said, have had doors opened for me as a younger woman. I wouldn't say I'm young, but by people who've been in the sector longer than me, who have the networks. And I know everyone's talking about asking the questions, but really listening and making sure that you're listening to a diversity of opinions and ideas, and finding voices. Someone once said to me, hard to reach or easy to ignore. And I think that's something I try to remember constantly, is that it's on us to make sure that we're asking people outside of our circles and outside of our normal, outside of our networks, their perspectives and what might work for them, and then making sure we listen and try and find an answer together.
Yeah, fantastic, Erin, and just so important to get those different perspectives, whether it's from different parts of the sector itself, so you're talking to an NGO or a first responder or a policymaker, but also within communities themselves. It's just so important for us to understand the nuances of communities and different ways they experience life and the different ways that they experience emergencies and disasters. Sharon, what about you? What would your number one bit of advice be to a young woman starting
out? Reach out, because we've all had to start somewhere. So just reach out and ask. You know, if you don't ask, you won't receive. So and then you can build on that. And there's so many things that you can attend that are free, you know, in your own time, even through work. So I don't know, like I've got people who've shattered me in the past, which has been great. So they're learning skills, you know, and people are happy to share. You know, they really want to pass on that knowledge, because if you have an idea and they have an idea, then you can share that. It's just amazing. You know, don't think of yourself just one sphere, because it's so much bigger than that. So let's just reach out.
Wonderful. Thank you, Sharon. What fantastic advice. And I really like that that piece of advice about reaching out. Sometimes you do have to push yourself to go and ask for help, or ask for advice, or ask to do something. And, you know, you're putting yourself at risk and making yourself vulnerable, but the payoff can be absolutely massive. Our next question is around mentoring, and it's something that Erin touched on in her talk earlier. But I'm really keen to understand how mentoring, and whether that's formal mentoring or more informal mentoring, how that has supported you in your career. Kendra.
Oh, thank you. I think informal mentoring is such an important and powerful piece. And, I reflect on Sharon and Erin's point there about reaching out and being the one that drives it. But also it's on us who have been around a few years to make sure that we're the ones reaching out and providing that informal mentoring, whether asked or not, and using Erin's language again, but pulling that chair out at the table and providing spotlights and opportunities. I think that informal mentoring provides that tailored encouragement and support that's more organic than perhaps a formal process, which can feel quite rigid and can have its own limitations. Thanks.
Yeah, absolutely, Kendra. Formal mentoring, some people really love it, really get a lot out of it, whereas for other people, they do prefer that informal. And I really love your answer in terms of, thinking about yourself and, what are you doing to mentor others coming up and coming through? And particularly for young people and people starting out in the sector, because they're our future leaders, and they're going to need to know as much as we know and more. So really, we've all got a role to play in that respect. Shireen, what about you and mentoring?
No, I feel a bit of pressure having won the award that I have to say something really amazing and insightful. I guess like Kendra, there is the formal mentoring, which can be very quite structured when you're taking somebody under the wing and you've got some very set goals and things to go forward. But you can't underestimate that informal mentoring or that coaching or support for other women in the sector, and noticing just who's around you and who might be uncomfortable and giving them a bit of a smile or noticing what they're doing or checking in. And I think, one of the best things about being a mentor is being able to have such a direct impact on how somebody is feeling about the decisions that they're making and their space at the table. And I have really reflected on some of the formal mentoring programs that I've been involved in, that you get a lot out of your mentees as well. Professionally, you learn a little bit more about your leadership, reframing. So I've found formal mentoring really quite beneficial for myself, but I think it's a mindset, and being one of those women in the sector that is supporting the other women. So being that person at the press release, standing behind somebody else and nodding and smiling and seeing and just applauding other women when they succeed in the space, and just really being supportive of each other.
That's fantastic, Shireen, and you did very well as the winner of the mentoring award to describe what you think around mentoring and what it can be for people. Sharon, you talked about that woman who sort of gave you a break and said that she believed in you. What about other mentors?
Formal mentoring is great, but I have a group of ladies who we catch up not very often. Oh, well, every 3 or 4 months. There's 4 of us. We're all from different parts of emergency management or disaster. And it's really great to sit around and share our ideas and get some really, because we trust each other, some really good feedback on how we're going and what we're, have you thought of this way? And we're all different. We're a little bit different ages. So they've either passed through that stage that I'm passing through, or someone's coming up behind me passing through that stage too. So that group of friends has really helped me. And we've all met purely through Disaster Response World. So I think that has been really great. Trust. We say to each other, trust yourself in your judgment. So that's really good. So
that's fantastic. What a great setup you've got there, Sharon, with a group of people who are not only friends but mentors, and you're doing it sort of collectively, like a little mentoring club almost. It's a fantastic idea. I really like it. And while we're on mentoring, and somebody popped in the chat, or does have a mentoring program. It's not a hugely formal program, and you can structure it really in any way that you like. So do make sure you check it out. We've been spending a lot of time over the past year or so rejigging the mentoring program to better meet the needs of our members. So do check it out. I've got another question here, and it's around well-being, and it's around looking after yourself. particularly when you're under pressure, you're in the middle of an incident, there's a lot going on. How do you prioritise the well-being of yourself and any staff that you might be responsible for? Kendra.
Yeah, it's such a good one, and it's such a vital one. Working in emergencies, there's nothing more important, and Victoria's very good at saying this, but there's nothing more important than you. There's nothing more important than me. And I can't deliver my role, and I can't help anyone, and I can't lead my teams if I'm not looking after my well-being. How do I do that? It's really refined self-awareness and constant check-ins, constant tracking and communicating that with those around me if I'm starting to falter and need space and time. It is incredibly crucial in the intense environments that we work, that we're really able to understand our triggers or how we're tracking to keep ourselves as balanced as possible, and taking the time and using the mechanisms that we've each developed uniquely to manage that.
Yeah, fantastic answer, Kendra. And you're right, it is just so important, particularly when you're at the sort of the pointy end of disasters and disaster management, particularly in response, but also even relief and through into recovery. When you're dealing with community members that are stressed, that are traumatized, that are grieving, we need to be presenting ourselves at the very top of our game. And if you're feeling under pressure, if you're depleted, if you haven't slept and so forth, then you're not going to be bringing the best that you can. But also for your own whole self as a person, to make sure that you're looking after yourself and can be the person that you need to be for yourself in your whole self and your whole life.
Yeah.
Shireen, what do you do to look after yourself and manage your well-being?
I'm very much like a complicated houseplant. I need to get some sunlight, and I need some water when it's like hot and things are going. I know myself from having spent a lot of time working in emergencies. I know when I'm not tracking well myself, and I know that I have to stay hydrated, and I've got to go outside and get a little bit of sunlight every now and then. When you're locked in a room under a pressure situation, it can take a bit of a toll. And I guess is having a bit of empathy for other people. Like when you're working in stressful situations and you're in that real tactical phase of an incident, and everybody can be a little bit prickly sometimes when they're under pressure, and recognizing that that's got nothing to do with you, and we're all going to be friends afterwards. It's just people will react to stress a little bit differently at other times. So just having that empathy for where people are at the moment, and especially when we're dealing with communities and other people. And I guess working in emergencies, for some of us, it is our full-time role and we're doing it all the time. And then for other of us, we have BAU roles and we have to step into emergencies or relief and recovery. And just recognizing what we're getting from other people when they're under stress, and having a bit of a self-care and being able to reach out to the peers that you have and the networks at your organisations or your volunteering organisations to reach out if you are recognising some of those triggers when you get stressed yourself. And if you're managing a team, is looking for that as well. So obviously, yep, we're all just droopy house plants. So keeping up the hydration or whatever works for you.
Thank you, Shireen. I love that complicated house plant. That's fantastic. And I think you're right. I think it's really important to know what works for you, for yourself. For some people it might be, taking a break and taking the dog for a walk, or, going and dropping in and having a cuppa with a friend, or, having a night off and going out to dinner and not having to worry about that. So being able to really identify concrete things that will help replenish you and revive you so that you can come back into the space fully. And Erin, what about you?
Someone once said to me, in my spare time, I'm a mad keen dancer, and that fell off the wagon a little bit in the last couple of years with sort of the roles that I took on. And someone said to me one day, I was sort of like, how have you done this for 30 years? I don't know how to do this. And he sat me down quietly and he went, you need to see dance as part of the job. And I come back to that anytime I'm going, I haven't got time for that. Oh, I'm so busy.
They make finalization. I don't want any, I don't want any I
sorry,
I
can
already
hear
done everything and then and then make any changes, it's
just make sure everyone's on mute. Sorry. So that was part of it. And then at Red Cross, I mean, we talk about psychosocial support and the importance of how the work we do with our communities, the support we provide our family, our kids, our parents, our neighbours, is so crucial. And sometimes that can be telling someone to go home, and sometimes that can be setting a standard that, oh, if I work really long hours, my team think that they have to work really long hours too. Obviously, in sort of a response situation, you kind of don't have an option. But in long-term recovery, that, we've just finished up our 4-year recovery program after Black Summer, and I can tell you, I think there's still a ton of work to do in a bunch of communities. So recovery is a marathon, not a sprint. So you need to train effectively, right? And part of that is having a long weekend every now and again and just making sure you do it. Part of that is, and I say this in some of our wellbeing workshops that we do, is like have a cup of tea and drink it while it's hot, because I used to do this. I'd leave cups of tea all around the house, and then I'd find a cold cup of tea in the microwave because I'd already warmed it up. And now I make sure I have my cup of tea. And even if it's a 3-minute thing where that's what I do, it helps kind of get you out of that stress response. And I think, and particularly I want to talk in long-term recovery is pacing yourself. So, a lot of community events are on a weekend. A lot of community organizations meet after work hours. So that might mean you might have to work late, but then sleep in the morning and organize to see a friend for brunch if you can. I think that's, easier said than done. One of my team's got 2 little kids, and she says, my time in the shower is the only 10 minutes I get to myself every day. And so we make sure that I'm not there, but she makes sure that she locks the door for that 10 minutes, and that helps her kind of come back to feeling rejuvenated. And I think that stuff is really important. And I just saw Kath Cooney on the call, and she doesn't know this, but she, in my real early days in emergency services, she provided a lot of support to me and a lot of kind of informal mentorship. So shout out to Kath Cooney for that. And I think just remembering those little moments of kindness, because that's what people hold on to. And I still remember some of the kindness that's been given to me in disaster recovery work. And remembering that, just because an evacuation centre shuts doesn't mean community have places to go back to. So some grace and some kindness and the power of a cup of tea and a scone will go miles. So, I think I've touched on all the right things. So, yeah.
I think a cup of tea and a scone is sounding fantastic, Erin, for any stressful situation. I'm right with you there on that. And what about you, Sharon?
So day-to-day life, definitely I've had to learn to make sure I take my breaks and book in time away. And we go camping where it's you're uncontactable. So, but in disaster response world, when there's an event, I have a really extremely supportive partner, and he takes care of my dogs, and he makes my lunches for me, and I just turn up and I'm 150% on for looking after the people in my incident management team, and I'm there for them because that's what my heart and soul is there. So I don't have to worry about anything like that. I come home, for dinner and it's all done. The washing's done and everything. So I think, and with my teams, if really being aware of what's going on with everybody, making sure if you see somebody who looks like they're in feeling stressed, then doesn't hurt to just stop, think, plan and act. So, remove them from that moment and get them to stop and think for a second. And if they need that break, then give them that break. And of course, it works both ways. I try to lead by example. We're very big into fatigue management. So that means I shouldn't be working, 16, 18 hours a day. And so if I'm preaching that, then I should be doing the same as my staff, as the people I'm looking after. So that's it. So.
Fantastic. Thank you so much, Sharon. Really great messages about not only caring for yourself, but caring for other people as well. I just want to say a really quick thank you to all of our speakers for today. What a fantastic cross-section and sort of a representation of the emergency management and disaster resilience sector. And if the sector's in the hands of people like Kendra, Shireen, Erin and Sharon, we are in exceptionally good hands. Smart, talented, experienced, caring, insightful women. Thank you so much. We've got a quick activity now for everyone to participate in. We would like you to provide one word that describes women in emergency management and disaster resilience. There is a link in the chat, and in a minute there will also be a QR code on the screen. So you jump into that link and you'll find yourself on a Mentimeter site, and then you can then input your words in response to one word to describe women in the emergency management and disaster resilience sector. I'll give you a couple of minutes to do that. Yeah. Oh, look at all those fabulous words. Inspirational, change makers, adaptable, powerful, awe-inspiring, committed, assertive, persistent. And the words keep coming. Empathetic, strong, passionate, resilient, needed. Oh, these are absolutely brilliant. Thank you, everybody. This is great. We'll be saving this word cloud and sharing it with you. We'll also be keeping this Mentimeter open for the next few hours or even for the rest of the day. So if you've got friends or colleagues you'd like to participate in this, please do. We really are a truly extraordinary bunch. So many great adjectives to describe women in the sector, and I hope this really helps to uplift you and make you feel proud about what you do, the contributions that you're making every day. Our last activity for the day is a call to action. We're fundraising and we need your support. So for those of you that don't know, OAR has promoted, supported and recognised women in emergencies and disasters since 2018. And over the next 4 weeks, we're going to be calling on our friends across the sector to help us keep our important work going by making a donation toward our $10,000 fundraising target. OAR is volunteer powered. We are not for profit and we offer free membership to women in the sector. Any donation will help us cover our administration costs and to fund some of our great opportunities like our networking events, our mentoring program, our scholarships, our recognition awards, and of course, OAR Day. And all of our work goes towards championing and promoting opportunities for women in the disaster and emergencies sector. And your donation can help ensure that these awesome opportunities are accessible and that we can continue to provide them free of charge. Small amounts coming from a lot of people will make a big difference, and we encourage you to donate whenever you can. And importantly, please share this throughout your networks. You'll be seeing a lot of social media coming through over the next 4 weeks, so please share. We are just about out of time, and I just want to say a few thank yous. Thank you again to our guests, Kendra, Shireen, Erin, and Sharon. It was really great to hear from you today. And as I said earlier, we could have spent an hour with just one of you. We do have 2,000 members. That would be 2,000 hours. That's a lot of time. We don't quite have that time available. So thank you, everybody who's come along today. And thank you for coming not only to help us recognise and celebrate women in the sector, but for your contribution to emergency management and disaster resilience. Every one of our members plays a really important role. We see you, we recognise you, and we celebrate you. We will see you at the next OAR event. In the meantime, have a fabulous day and happy OAR Day. Goodbye. Bye, everyone.
Bye.
Thank you.